Hello and welcome to my channel, Miscellaneous Sea Serpent. Let's dive right on it. So today I have a fun little treat for you guys, and for me actually. So I got a Sketchbox subscription for a couple months. And this is the first box. This is actually the August box, so this video is a couple months late, but that's okay. So yeah, I just wanted to experiment with trying a subscription box. I got it for my birthday, and it was really fun to get this box and then just have a bunch of random art supplies that I had to experiment with and figure out how to use and how to work together, and then come up with an idea of what to make based on the art supplies that I got. So that was really fun, and I really enjoyed this piece and how it turned out. Yeah, this little jellyfish kingdom that I gotta draw and paint. So yeah, first off, I want to go through the different materials that came in the box. The first thing was this little set of 6 Derwent Lightfast pencils that are like, it was like a first look feature sort of thing where they just came out with these new Lightfast pencils. So we gotta try those out, and they have like their own little set that specifically for the Sketchbox, which was interesting. It's very limited colors and they're very specific. So they're like some browns, blues, and then like one salmon color, which was interesting that it's so limited and so specific. So that was a little bit of a challenge to figure out how to incorporate that in an art piece, in a full art piece, along with the other supplies that came in the box. So next up, I got 3 Derwent Graphitint pencils, and these were actually really fun. Like, I really enjoyed these because, as well as being, so there are colored, sort of pigmented graphite pencils, but as well as being colored graphite, they're also water soluble. So I played with that a bunch. It was a little difficult to work in places where I'd already sort of gone over with the colored pencils. But it was also really fun. I did like little splotches around the jellyfish to sort of indicate that it's in water and give that sort of feeling without doing everything in water. And then I got to play around with the water solubility of the graphite, and it was really fun. These are really cool pencils, and I've been enjoying them a lot in other pieces and just for sketching or adding pops of color to my sketches in my sketchbook. So yeah, I actually got 3 of those pencils in, one's aubergine, so that one's like a purple color, ocean blue, it's the blue, it's also the color I used to color the ocean, and then meadow as well, which is a nice sort of green color that isn't too bright. I liked it that it wasn't overly bright, and none of these colors are like too bright. They're nice and desaturated, so I really liked the color selection as well as just the pencils themselves. Okay, then the next pencil I got was a Faber-Castell Polychromos in a bright sort of sky blue, and it was supposed to give an idea of another pencil that has that is sort of certified for being Lightfast, to sort of compare with the Derwent Lightfast set that I talked about earlier. So yeah, I like the color a lot. I don't really have a lot to say about like the lightfastness of any of them. It'll be a few years before I figure that out. Yeah, I didn't like stick my piece under a bright white light for a week or anything to test it out. I just have to hope it works. Yeah, it was really nice and blendable also. Nice and smooth. Yeah, so I liked it. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. And then the last pencil that came in this box was the Cretacolor MegaGraphite pencil. So it's mostly just this big, chunky graphite pencil. Yeah, it's big. It's like thick. So it was a extra wide, I guess is what it's called, for the diameter was really wide. And then it also had a 9B lead, which I think is the darkest I've ever used. I know I have 8B, but I don't think I have 9. So yeah, it was really dark. It's big, so it's really good for lots of coverage. But I didn't really use it a lot in this piece. It just didn't really work in that well. I used it a little bit for the shading on some of the buildings, but because it's graphite, it doesn't really work well with the waxiness of colored pencils, so I didn't really have much of an idea of how I could incorporate it. So that was a challenge, but it's a really fun pencil to work with and sketch with, but it wasn't very useful for this piece specifically. And then the last thing in the box was a Mobius and Rupert sharpener and eraser, and this was a really cool eraser. I really like it. I put it in my pencil case because it works really well, and that is something that's really important as an artist, to have one of those sharpeners that doesn't break your pencil all the time. It's really nice. It's got a little compartment for collecting the shavings, and also interestingly, it's got like a little slidey cover that covers up the sharpener part so that when you're not using it, the shavings don't come out. That I thought was an interesting feature. And then there's another compartment opposite the sharpening part that has a little eraser in it that's just stuck in there. And I didn't actually like this eraser all that much. It just doesn't. It's really hard. It kind of feels like the same material as those like school supply pink erasers. I don't really like those either. I prefer more flexible erasers, and usually I just use my kneadable eraser, so it wasn't a big problem. I have plenty of erasers, and I really like the sharpener, so it just makes up for that little downside in the eraser there. So yeah, that's all the materials for this box. So yeah, let's talk about this art piece because it was really fun. I really enjoyed doing this art piece. It was really fun to experiment beforehand. So when I got all the materials out and I was looking at colors and like the materials that I had, for some reason a jellyfish popped into my brain. They often do, I don't know. So yeah, my idea was to have a jellyfish and then to have sort of a fantasy kingdom sort of cityscape inside the top part of the jellyfish. that's sort of like sitting on a hill and incorporated in there. So with this idea in mind, I decided to make a bunch of little thumbnails in my sketchbook to just try out the materials, get an idea of how the colors could work together and where I wanted to put each color, as well as how I wanted the layout of this piece to work. So I did like a little sketch of like one possible layout, and a little sketch of another possible layout, and then each one had a different color scheme, and that way I could mix and match and decide which color scheme I like best and which of the actual little sketches of the jellyfish I liked. So that worked out really well. It was also a really fun process to just like go as messy as I wanted to and know that eventually it would lead to a nice finished product. But like at this stage it was just experimenting. So that's really fun. I highly recommend doing thumbnails. Just that for some reason doing it really tiny and quick is just super fun. So if you want to test that out, I highly recommend it. Yeah, so then again, my subject matter was a jellyfish. I really like jellyfish, or jellies, however you want to call them. So it was a really interesting idea, kind of interesting colors for a jellyfish, having a lot of browns and working like I wanted a gradient in the top part of the jellyfish, so I had to figure out which colors could give me that gradient. And actually I did I did the blue, the Faber-Castell, the Polychromos blue, into the salmon pink from the Derwent set, into the purple Graphitint pencil. Like I had all these different pencils trying to blend them into each other, even though they were kind of very different from each other. So that was interesting. And then at some point I tried blending it, the Graphitint pencil out with water, and it didn't work as well as I wanted it to, because I'd already tried to blend it in with the colored pencil, so the wax was there, kind of preventing it from sticking to the paper. So it was an experiment. It turned out a little bit muddy, but I like how it turned out in the end. And that transition, the blending I did eventually get that to work. So yeah, that's about the jellyfish. So the difference between the Graphitint and the colored pencils worked really well, was really to my advantage for the like bottom part of the jellyfish, where like the ribbony part that's coming out of it, because it had a lot of separation, so I was able to play with that to make it look more translucent, I think. So that was sort of an interesting, sort of happy accident there, where I wasn't sure where it was all going exactly, but I liked how it turned out. That's always a plus. Yeah, so that's mostly all I have to say about this piece. It was really, really fun to get to experiment with this box and sort of have it challenge me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. So until next time, live life respectfully.